Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Earlier today, the U.S. Senate passed the last-minute compromise plan to raise the nation's debt ceiling. The measure was approved by the U.S. House yesterday. The bill has been signed by President Obama. But what does that mean for Main Street USA? Earlier this afternoon, I spoke with Pete DeRuta of Capital Financial Advisory Group to find out more. Pete DeRuta, welcome to North Carolina Now.
Thank you.
Now, we've heard so much about the U.S. national debt. If we could just sort of bring this to terms that folks can understand, what is the national debt and what are some of the factors involved in that national debt?
It's a huge number, isn't it?
Yes.
It keeps growing, too. Some of the things that aren't factored into it are long-term Medicaid, Medicare expenses, too. So the national debt, probably, if you look at the real debt, it's a lot bigger than the $14 trillion we see when we go to New York City and see the big debt clock. So it's just a big number, though, and people get confused by that number. But what I tell folks is to bring it down to a local level and do things that you can prevent or you can address in your own personal financial situation.
And of course, today, the Senate approved a measure to increase the spending, well, as far as the debt is concerned, to raise that cap by up to $2.4 trillion. And President Obama quickly signed it. What would have happened if this bill had not been signed?
Yeah, probably nothing that we would have noticed right away. I mean, there would have been a lot more political posturing, as there has been. But when it comes down to it, personal economies and state economies really aren't as dependent on the federal government as people think. And the problem here, and you saw the market tank as soon as they signed the bill, market doesn't like uncertainty because all they did with this bill is kick the can down the road for another year or two. And when you give them 2.4 or 2.1 more trillion dollars to crank up the printing presses and start spending, it's almost like they were searching for a treasure, but they turned the treasure map upside down, and now the new bill that passed gives them bigger shovels and bigger picks, and they're swinging like crazy and digging like crazy, thinking they're getting closer to the gold. But what they don't realize is there's a sewer line right underneath where they're digging.
Now, as we're talking now, the ceiling is up by approximately up to $2.4 trillion. But in that agreement, there's also spending, well, they have to come up with cuts of up to $2.1 trillion over the next 10 years. Will there be any meeting of the minds or any balance within that time?
Yeah, the problem there is something called a baseline, and the baseline is the amount of debt that's really there. So the debt's still there at $14 trillion and growing. And they're going to grow that each and every year. Over the next 10 years, according to the bill that I've seen, it'll grow about another $8 trillion. Even though they're going to reduce about 2-point-something trillion, it's still going to grow by a net of about between $6 and $8 trillion more. If I budget my personal economy like that at home, I'm going to have the sheriff knocking on the door, getting ready to repo my house and my cars. So I wish the government could live more like we do at home.
And coming close to North Carolina, how will this impact businesses and individuals here in the Tar Heel State?
It could be a good thing for businesses now with the extra money that's available in the economy. Businesses should be able to get better loans. Now, long term, it may not be good because I think interest rates may go up. So what I tell folks is if you have a house right now and you have a rate that's over 5 or 6%, try to refinance at 4.5% or so and lock that in for 30 years, because as rates go up in the future, all you have to pay the bank is 4.5%. So you can lock in a great deal on the mortgages. The problem, though, is with credit cards. A lot of people have credit cards and a lot of people have rates up to 30%. You need to, first of all, pay those credit cards off before you ever try to save money, because if you pay off a 30% credit card, you just, in effect, made a 30% interest rate.
Now, you're also a certified investment advisor. How can investors take advantage of this, or is there anything in it for them as far as this cap being raised?
There's a saying called it's a stock picker's market, and that's what it is. If you pick the right stock, you could do well, but of course if you pick the wrong stock, things could go the other way. So you have to be very careful trying to pick stocks, and what I tell people is that only pick stocks and only take risk after you have a guaranteed and safe income plan put together, something you can have certainty and look forward 20 or 30 years into the future, know exactly what your growth rate's going to be between now and then, and also, more importantly, know exactly what your guaranteed lifetime income is going to be, and then take what's left, the sprinkles we call them on top of the sundae, the whipped cream and the cherry, put those or that money at risk, and then if you lose that money, you still have your base ice cream ready for you for retirement.
Now, if you had to just give people like step 1, 2, 3, and 4 to try and weather this storm, what would they be?
Yeah. Number one is you need to get at least 2 opinions nowadays on your financial situation. And if you already have a plan, get another opinion. Never hurt to get a real second opinion. And never go back to the person who gave you the first opinion to give you that second opinion, because that's just a recycled first opinion. So first of all, you come up with a true income plan, a true debt plan for your own personal economy. Take advantage of what the government has available. Take advantage of these great low interest rates on one end, but then find places where you can get better interest for your growth on the other end. And it's possible, but you have to deal with planners who specialize in that.
Now, we've been talking back and forth, especially when we were talking about the national debt and the wrangling going on in Congress and what would happen if we didn't end up raising the national debt level. Now that it's raised, should North Carolinians be worried right now?
I'm really happy with the job that North Carolina's done as far as balancing their own budget and keeping track of the expenses and doing the right thing. There's always waste, and there's always chances that people that are getting too much money that don't deserve the money, or that people that need money aren't getting what they should. But North Carolina's doing a good job, and I really think that people need to take a step away from the TV and the newspaper and the radio with all the back and forth, because bad news sells. But if you look at your own personal economy, just get a good budget together. Make sure that you're not spending too much. Make sure that you have good growth plans in place. Make sure you have some of your money not at risk. And then you can basically take a step back as far as the fighting you see and know it's not really applying to you. Have some certainty in your own financial plan, even if the government can't do it for itself.
Now, you've talked about not having just one opinion, but is there anything out there for individuals and businesses to go to? Is there a place to go to if they want to find out more information of trying to get their financial house in order?
Yeah, a lot of people turn to the internet, but the internet is a wild west, and how do you really know who you're talking to or what they're really saying? So you can get opinions, and you have to do some reading on your own. You have to do some research, have to get everything backed up. The Small Business Administration is a good place for people to go if they're trying to research if it's good to get a business loan. Sites like AARP are good, but you have to make sure to take a step back and make sure you know that a lot of things on AARP are financed by insurance and mutual fund companies. So as long as you know you're just getting information, collecting information, making sure to listen to good radio shows. I have a good show that's on every single week people can listen to. But just make sure to balance your information and make sure not to take big steps. Take a step back, think about things before you ever do something, and make sure that you always analyze something. Once you get a contract in your hand, usually you have a couple of days to cancel it if it doesn't look good.
Pete D'Arruda, President and founder of Capital Financial Advisory Group, thank you so very much for stopping by and sharing your insights with us.
It's been my pleasure, and folks, don't worry, everything will be fine.
Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.